I stood in my daughter's driveway at 3 in the morning, my hand shaking as I dialed 911. Behind me, the basement window was still open, the one I just climbed out of after finding my daughter locked inside. Her husband's voice echoed in my head. "She's just dramatic, Dad. She'll calm down by morning." But I'd heard her crying, and I'd seen the padlock on the outside of the door. The operator answered. I gave her the address on Maplewood Drive. My voice was steady. That surprised me. Inside, my heart was trying to punch through my ribs. If this story moves you, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel. Your support helps more stories like this reach the people who need to hear them. I'd arrived Friday evening at 6 o'clock. Emily met me at the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She hugged me, but her body was stiff. Her hands were cold. Mark came up behind her, one hand on her shoulder. Squeezing, not gently. "Robert, good to see you." He smiled, but it was the kind of smile that tells you exactly how unwelcome you are. Dinner was tense. Emily had made lasagna, my favorite. She'd burned the edge, and she apologized 3 times before Mark even said anything. When he finally did, he just looked at the blackened corner and sighed. Not a word, just a sigh that said everything. At 8 o'clock, Emily was clearing the plates. She reached across the table for Mark's wine glass. It slipped. Red wine spread across his white shirt like a wound opening. Emily's face went pale. She started stammering. I'm so sorry, I'll get a cloth." Mark stood up. He didn't shout. That was worse. He looked at the stain, then at Emily, and said very quietly, "You just couldn't help yourself, could you?" "It was an accident," I said. He ignored me. "Go to the basement, Emily. We'll talk about this in the morning." She didn't argue. She just nodded and walked toward the basement door. I watched her go down the stairs. Mark followed her. I heard him say something, but not what. Then he came back up alone. He closed the door behind him. "I think I'll turn in early," I said. Mark nodded. "Good idea. Long day." I went to my room. I lay in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my chest, that heavy pull that had never steered me wrong in 58 years. At 3 in the morning, I got up to use the bathroom. The house was silent. Too silent. I walked past the basement door and stopped. I heard it. A soft, muffled sound, coming from below. I pressed my ear against the wood. It was crying. My daughter was crying. I tried the handle. Locked. I bent down and looked at the lock. It wasn't a regular lock. It was a padlock, the kind you use on a storage shed. The hasp was screwed into the doorframe. The padlock was closed. From the outside! My hands stopped shaking. Something in me went cold and still. I went around the house to the backyard, and there was a basement window, small but big enough. I pried it open with a gardening trowel I found by the back door. I dropped into the dark. Emily was curled up on an old couch in the corner. Her face was swollen from crying. Her wrists were red and raw. She looked up at me and whispered, "Dad?" "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm getting you out." I climbed back out the window. I went to the front door, went inside, and walked to the master bedroom. I opened the door without knocking. Mark was awake. He was sitting up in bed, phone in hand. "What do you want, Robert?" "I want you to unlock the basement door." He smiled. That same smile. "She's just dramatic, Dad. She'll calm down by morning." "I saw the padlock, Mark, from the outside." His smile faded. "She's my wife. This is my house. You don't tell me what to do in my own home." He stood up. He was taller than me, broader. "You need to leave. Now." I walked out of the room. He followed me. I went to the front door, opened it, and stepped outside. He watched from the doorway, arms crossed. I walked to my car. I got in. I backed out of the driveway. I pulled to the curb out of sight, and I called the police. 4 patrol cars arrived at 3:47. I met them in the driveway. I showed them the basement window. I showed them the padlock. One officer knocked on the front door. Mark answered in his robe, all charm. "Officers, I'm so sorry. My father-in-law is just a little overprotective. My wife and I had a disagreement. She's fine." The officer wasn't impressed.
Open the basement door, sir.
I can't. I lost the key. The officer turned to me. Is there another way in? Basement window, open. 2 officers went around back. I heard them break the window open wider. 2 minutes later, they came back through the front door with Emily. She was wrapped in a police blanket. Her wrists were visible. Dark purple rings around each one. The officer looked at Mark. Mark, sir, step outside. Keep your hands where I can see them. On what charge? This is ridiculous. False imprisonment for starters. We'll figure out the rest. Mark glared at me. You did this. Yes, I said. I did. They put him in the back of a cruiser. Emily sat in the back of my car trembling. I sat beside her. I held her hand. As the police drove away with Mark, I looked at my daughter's bruised wrists and wondered how long this had been going on. I drove Emily to my house that night. She didn't say a word the whole way, just stared out the window, her hands wrapped in the police blanket. I kept glancing at her wrists, those dark purple rings. I wanted to ask 100 questions, but I didn't. Not yet. We got to my place around 5 in the morning. I made her a cup of tea. She held it with both hands. She didn't drink it. She just sat on my couch, staring at the steam. The kids, she said. Where are the kids? Staying with your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, I said. The police arranged it. They're safe. She nodded. Then she started to cry. Not loud, just silent tears running down her face. I sat beside her. I didn't say anything. Sometimes silence is the only thing that helps. Oh! She fell asleep on my couch around 6. I covered her with a blanket and sat in the chair across from her. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that padlock. I saw Mark's face when he said, "She's just dramatic." Emily woke up around noon. She looked lost for a second, then remembered. Her face crumpled, but she pulled herself together. She always did that. I knew that about her. She hid things. "Dad," she said, "I need to tell you everything." I sat down. "Take your time." She took a deep breath. And then she started talking. She told me about the first time. It was 3 years ago. They'd been married for 2. She burned dinner. Not badly, just a little overdone. Mark threw the plate against the wall. Said she was incompetent. Said she humiliated him. The next day, he locked her in the basement. 2 hours. For thinking time, he called it. I gripped the arm of my chair. I said nothing. It escalated slowly. A push here, a slap there. Always followed by apologies, by promises it would never happen again. Then the locked door became more common. 4 hours, 6 hours. One time, 12. I asked her why she never told me. She looked at her hands. He told me you wouldn't believe me. He said you'd think I was just being dramatic. Sound familiar? My jaw tightened. Yes, it sounded familiar. She told me about the money. Mark controlled everything. She had a part-time job as a graphic designer, but he managed the accounts. She got an allowance, $75 a week, for groceries and gas. I asked about her savings, the account she'd opened in college, the money from her mother's life insurance. She started crying again. He emptied it. $53,000, over 2 years. I didn't know until last month when I tried to check the balance. 40,000. That's what the bank told us later. Mark had transferred it to his personal account, a little at a time. 200 here, 300 there, small enough not to trigger flags. I asked if she had proof. She nodded. I kept photos. Of the bruises, of the locked doors. I hid them in a folder in my email drafts. I thought maybe someday. Show me, I said. She pulled out her phone. She opened her email. And I saw them, photograph after photograph. Bruises on her arms, bruises on her ribs. A black eye from 2 years ago, marks on her wrists from the handcuffs he used sometimes. My hands started shaking, but my voice stayed steady. Send those to my phone, every single one. She did. I saved them all. Then I asked about the neighbors. We lived 3 houses down from Mark and Emily. I knew the neighbors, the Harrisons, an older couple. The Millers, a young family. I called Mrs. Birding, Harrison, that afternoon. "Carol," I said. "This is Robert, Emily's father. I need to ask you something." She hesitated. "I heard about what happened. Is Emily okay?" "She's safe, but I need to know. Did you ever hear anything? From their house?" Another hesitation. Then she said, "Sometimes late at night," shouting and crying. I wanted to call someone, but I thought it was just a fight. I didn't want to interfere. I thanked her. I hung up. I sat in my kitchen. Emily was taking a shower. I could hear the water running. I opened my phone and looked at the photos again. Bruise after bruise. I knew then that this wasn't one night. It wasn't one mistake. This was years, years of my daughter suffering while I sat in my house wondering why she didn't call as often. I hired a private investigator the next morning. What he found about Mark's past made my blood run cold. The private investigator's name was Frank. He was retired police, late 50s, the kind of man who'd seen enough to know when someone was lying. I met him at a diner near my house on a Tuesday morning. He slid a manila envelope across the table before he even sat down. "Mark Thompson," Frank said. "You're not going to like this." I opened the envelope. Inside was a court document, a restraining order, filed by a woman named Laura Kessler in 2018. She was his girlfriend before Emily, Frank said. Lasted about a year. She filed the order after he locked her in a closet during an argument. "Go!" I stared at the paper. Same pattern, same cruelty. Just a different door. She dropped the order 3 weeks later, Frank continued. Said she was scared he'd come after her family. The case was dismissed. No conviction. I asked if there was anything else. Frank nodded slowly, the way a man does when he's about to tell you something worse. He's got a reputation in his real estate office. 2 complaints from female clients about aggressive behavior. Nothing formal, but people know. I thanked Frank. I paid him. I walked to my car and sat in the driver's seat with my hands on the wheel. The engine was off. The parking lot was empty. I sat there for a long time thinking about the word closet. One letter different from basement. I called Sarah Chen on the way home. Sarah was a family lawyer, sharp, mid-50s. I'd met her through a retired teacher who'd used her for a custody case years ago. She listened while I explained everything. The padlock, the bruises, the missing savings. The restraining order Frank had found. Her voice was steady, professional. "Robert, how long has Mark been out on bail?" "Since Wednesday," I said. "And has Emily filed for divorce?" "Yes, yesterday morning, with a temporary restraining order." There was silence on the line. I could hear her typing in the background. "Good," she said, "but he's going to fight. And if he fights for custody, the court will want proof. Proof we might not have yet." I told her we had the photos, the recording of the arrest, the neighbor's statement. "Those help," she said. "But I've seen judges grant supervised visitation on less. Especially when the father says the mother is mentally unstable and the grandfather is interfering." She was right, and I knew it before she said it. The call ended. I turned onto Maplewood Drive and saw Emily's car in my driveway. She was standing at the front door with her phone in her hand. Her face was pale. "Dad," she said, "he called." She handed me the phone. The voicemail was already pulled up. I pressed play. Mark's voice came through. Calm, controlled, the same voice I'd heard at dinner that Friday. "Em, you need to stop this. You're not thinking clearly. Your father has confused you. We can fix this if you come home." Then his tone shifted. Colder. "But if you keep this up, I will make sure everyone knows you had a breakdown. I will get the kids, and you will never see them without a judge ordering it." The message ended. I looked at Emily. Her hands were shaking. I wanted to tell her it would be okay, but I didn't know if that was true. "He called 3 more times," she said. "I didn't answer." I saved the voicemail. I forwarded it to Sarah. Then I called the detective handling Mark's case. "Case!" Detective Harris picked up on the 3rd ring. I told him about the voicemail, about the harassment. "He's out on bail for false imprisonment," I said. and he's calling his victim, telling her she's having a breakdown. Harris was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Forward me the voicemail. I'll talk to the prosecutor." But Robert, bail conditions don't always stop a man like this from doing what he wants. I knew that. I'd known it the second I saw Frank's envelope. 2 days later, I opened my mailbox and found the certified letter. It was from Mark's lawyer. Mark Thompson filed for custody of the children, ages 6 and 4. He claimed Emily was mentally unstable. He claimed I had kidnapped her. He demanded full custody with only supervised visitation for Emily. The court date was set for December 4th. I called Sarah again. She said the system would need evidence. Evidence we were still gathering. But Mark had one advantage. He was out of jail. He could talk to the judge. He could look honest and concerned in a courtroom while Emily stayed hidden behind her bruises. The hearing for temporary custody arrangements happened on Monday, October 23rd. I drove Emily to the courthouse. She wore a long-sleeve blouse to cover the marks on her arms. Sarah met us at the door. We sat in a small room with a family court judge named Hernandez. Mark sat across the room next to his lawyer. Nusted. He looked clean, polished. The real estate agent's smile was back. He didn't look at Emily. Mark's lawyer argued that Emily had abandoned the marital home, that her father had interfered in a healthy marriage, that there was no physical evidence of abuse because the police report was based on one incident. One, they said, an isolated moment. Sarah argued the other way. She submitted the photos, the neighbor's testimony, the voicemail, the police report. Judge Hernandez listened. Then she said, "The father has been charged with false imprisonment. That is serious, but there is no conviction yet, and I have not seen evidence of physical harm to the children." She granted Mark supervised visitation every Wednesday afternoon at a county facility with a court-appointed monitor. Emily gripped the edge of her seat. I put my hand on her back. "Is that it?" she whispered. "He gets to see them?" I didn't answer, because I didn't have a good answer. On the first Wednesday, I drove Emily to the facility. She kissed her children, held them too long. Then she watched them walk into a small visitation room where Mark was already waiting. I stayed in the waiting area. 30 minutes passed, then 45. Then my grandson, the 6-year-old, walked out holding the hand of the monitor. His eyes were red. He walked straight to Emily, leaned in close, and whispered something I will never forget. "Daddy said he's going to take us away forever." Emily looked at me. Her face broke, and I knew we needed something more. The recording came from a place I never would have thought to look. Emily was cleaning out the garage on a Wednesday afternoon, 2 days after the visitation. She needed something to do with her hands. The custody hearing had hollowed her out. She sorted through boxes of Christmas decorations, old baby clothes, things Mark had shoved into corners and forgotten. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard her gasp. I found her sitting on the garage floor surrounded by junk mail and old electronics. She was holding a small black phone, an old Samsung from 5 years ago. The screen was cracked. The battery bulged at the back. "He used this before he got the new one," she said. Her voice was thin. "He threw it in his box when he upgraded. I forgot it existed." She pressed the power button. The screen flickered. Stayed dark. "Dead," she said. I took the phone inside. Found the old charger in a drawer of cables. Plugged it in. We waited. 10 minutes later, the screen lit up. It asked for a password. Emily stared at it. Her face went pale. "His birthday," she said. 4 digits. "Try it," I said. She typed. The phone unlocked. I don't know what I expected. Photos, emails. Nothing useful. But Emily knew her husband. She opened the voice recorder app. There were 6 files, all dated from the past year, named by date only. No labels. Emily pressed the oldest one. The audio crackled. Then Mark's voice filled the room. Flick, "Get up." A pause, a muffled sound. "I said get up!" "You think you can just lie there?" Emily's hand flew to her mouth. I leaned closer to the speaker. "Look at me when I'm talking to you. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? In front of your father. You dumped wine all over my shirt." My brand new shirt. Do you know how much that costs? A woman's voice, quiet, trembling. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it. Sorry doesn't get the stain out. You need to remember this, Emily. You need to remember not to humiliate me. So I'm going to help you remember. You're going to spend the night down here, thinking about how to be a better wife. Please, please don't. I'll decide when you can come out. Not until I'm sure you understand. The recording ended. I looked at Emily. Her face was a mask of old terror. Her fingers shook. Play the next one, I said. She did. Another argument. Another threat. The same voice. The same quiet cruelty. In the third recording, there was a sound I will never forget. A crack. A slap. And then silence. Emily stopped playing them. She set the phone down like it was made of fire. I forgot he recorded things, she whispered. He used to say he wanted to prove how difficult I was. To show people. I didn't know he'd kept them. I picked up the phone. 6 recordings, 6 pieces of evidence. Proof of his voice, his threats, the slap. I drove to Sarah Chen's office that same afternoon. Sarah listened to the first recording. Her face remained neutral.
Yeah.
She listened to the second. She took notes. By the third, she had stopped writing. When the slap came through on the fourth, she put her pen down and shut her laptop. She looked from me to Emily. Do you understand what this is? Emily nodded. These recordings verify everything you've said. Verbal threats. Physical violence. Explicit threats of confinement. He admits to locking you in the basement. He describes it. This is why the false imprisonment charge holds. This is why a jury will believe you. She paused. We still need to prepare. Mark has a lawyer. He will attack your credibility. He will call you unstable. He will say your father coerced you into filing for divorce. Emily nodded again. She was listening. But these recordings, Sarah said, are the difference between your word against his and your word backed by his own mouth. Sarah reached for her keyboard. I'm submitting a formal subpoena for Mark's financial records. All accounts, all business entities. If he has hidden money, I will find it. His company was called something, I said. I saw it on a business card once. Maplewood something. Maplewood Properties, Sarah said. She typed. I know that entity. It's a shell. A few agents use them to protect commission income. If he's been hiding assets there, the court will want to know. The subpoena was filed the next morning. The bank response came back by Friday. Mark had been routing 20% of his commissions through Maplewood Properties LLC for 3 years. The account held $200,000. None of it was declared on the income statements Emily's lawyer had been sent. Sarah called me at 6 p.m. Your private investigator didn't miss anything. Mark was just smarter than we gave him credit for. Then we use it? We can destroy him with it. Hiding assets during a divorce is one thing. Hiding assets during a custody battle where he claims poverty? That's perjury. That's contempt. That's grounds to vacate any custody rights. She paused. The court date is set for December 4th, 2 months from now. I need Emily to be ready to testify. I need you ready too. I will be, I said. Good. Bring the phone. Bring the recordings. And bring everything Frank found on the shell company. She hung up. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone. Dane! The evidence was in my hand. His voice. His money. His lies. Emily walked in. She saw the phone. Did she say anything else? I looked at my daughter. Her wrists were healing. Her voice was stronger than it had been in weeks. You whoa! Sarah said. This is going to destroy him, I said. Emily held my gaze. Good. She didn't flinch. And for the first time that night, I believed her. The hearing was set for 9 in the morning. I woke up at 4 and couldn't get back to sleep. I made coffee. I sat in the dark kitchen and watched the clock tick. Emily came down at 6. She was wearing a blue blazer I'd never seen before. She'd bought it for the hearing. You look ready, I said. I am ready. We drove to the courthouse in silence. The parking lot was half empty. I found a spot near the entrance and killed the engine. Emily put her hand on mine. "Whatever happens in there," she said, "thank you." "You don't have to thank me." "I do." We walked inside together. The courtroom was small. Wooden benches, a flag in the corner. Mark was already there, sitting at a table with his lawyer. He was wearing a gray suit. His hair was perfectly combed. He looked like a man who believed he'd already won. He looked at me and smiled. It was the smile of someone who thought he was smarter than everyone in the room. I didn't smile back. I sat down next to Sarah. Judge Hernandez entered. Everyone stood. The bailiff called the room to order, and then it began. Sarah called me to the stand first. I walked up, sat down, and swore to tell the truth. I was calm. My hands were still. Inside, my heart was pounding. "Mr. Miller," Sarah said, "can you describe what you saw on the night of October 14th? I described everything. The 3 a.m. wake-up, the crying, the basement door, the padlock on the outside. Emily curled up on an old couch. I described climbing out the window, calling 911, the cold air on my face, the way the phone shook in my hand. When you confronted your son-in-law, what did he say? He said, 'She's my wife. This is my house.' He ordered me to leave. He called her dramatic." Sarah nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Miller. No further questions." Mark's lawyer stood up. He tried to shake me. "Mr. Miller, isn't it true that you and your daughter have a strained relationship? That she exaggerates for attention?" "No." "Didn't Emily tell you she wanted to leave Mark for months before this incident?" "She told me she was unhappy. She never told me she was locked in a basement." He pushed harder. I answered every question the same way, with the truth. 4 words, 5 words, never more. The evidence didn't need embroidery. When I stepped down, I looked at Mark. He wasn't smiling anymore. "Good." Then Emily took the stand. She walked up slowly. She sat down. She looked at the judge. And she began. She talked about 3 years. The first time he locked her in the basement, she'd burned dinner. 3 hours for a ruined meal. She talked about the money, the $40,000 he'd drained from her savings. She talked about the bruises, the times he grabbed her wrists, the times he pushed her against walls. She produced the photos, the dark rings on her arms, the purple marks on her shoulders. She produced the recording. "Your Honor," Sarah said. This was recovered from a phone in the defendant's own garage. It captures his voice, his words, his actions. The judge listened to the recording through headphones. "Yeah." The courtroom was silent. I watched Mark's face. He was staring at the table. His ears were red. The recording ended. Judge Hernandez removed the headphones. Her face was stone. "Thompson," she said, "do you have anything to say?" Mark stood up. He smoothed his jacket. He looked at the judge with that same self-assured smirk. "Your Honor," he said, "she's just dramatic. She always has been." The words hung in the air. The same words he'd used that night in the driveway. The same words he'd used to dismiss Emily. The same words he'd used to justify everything. Judge Hernandez stared at him for a long moment. Then she spoke. "I have reviewed considerable evidence in this matter. Photographs of injuries, voice recordings of threats, testimony from the victim, testimony from her father, a prior restraining order from another woman. The defendant has chosen to respond by dismissing the victim's suffering as drama. I find that response telling, and I find the evidence overwhelming." She paused. "I hereby grant full custody of the children to the mother. The father's parental rights are revoked. Additionally, for the charge of false imprisonment, I sentence Mark Thompson to 18 months in state prison. He is to be remanded into custody immediately." Mark's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, we request an appeal. Cost." "Why'd?" The bailiff moved toward Mark. He turned to look at me. His face was white. His composure was gone. "This isn't over," he said, but I knew it was. They handcuffed him. They led him away. Emily didn't watch. She was already looking at me, and for the first time in 3 years, she was smiling. The hearing ended at 11:47 in the morning. Emily and I walked out of the courtroom into the December cold. She was still holding my arm. Her fingers were shaking, but her face was steady. Sarah caught up with us on the courthouse steps. "That went well," she said, "but we're not done." I knew what she meant. Mark was in custody, but the divorce was still open. Child support was being contested, and somewhere out there Mark had hidden money. The forensic accountant Sarah had hired was still digging. His name was David Tran. He was 62 years old, retired IRS, and he had a gift for finding money that people thought they buried. I met him at his office 2 days after the sentencing. He had a thick folder on his desk and a look on his face that I couldn't read. "Sit down, Mr. Miller," he said. I sat. "Mark Thompson isn't as smart as he thinks he is," David said. He opened the folder. He set up a shell company called Maplewood Properties, LLC in March of 2021. He listed himself as the sole member. He used his mother's address in Florida as the registered office. I leaned forward. "The company has been receiving payments from his real estate commissions for 2.5 years, David said. He'd close a deal, take his commission, and route a percentage through Maplewood Properties. He reported the income on his taxes, but he listed it as business expenses. Rent, office supplies, marketing." "How much?" David turned the folder toward me. $200,000. I looked at the numbers. Spreadsheets, bank statements, deposit records. It was all there. Every transaction, every date, every dollar. Mark had siphoned away while telling Emily there was no money for groceries. "Where is it now?" I asked. "2 accounts at a credit union in Newark," David said. "1 checking, 1 savings. He's been drawing from the checking for personal expenses. The savings has $140,000 still sitting there." I closed the folder. "Can we prove he hid it from the court?" David smiled. "He didn't disclose any of this in the divorce proceedings. He claimed he had no assets beyond the house and his 401k. That's perjury." I thanked him. I called Sarah from the parking lot. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said one word: beautiful. The next hearing was scheduled for January 12, 2024. Family court again, same judge. The issue was child support and financial disclosure. Mark was transported from the county jail wearing an orange jumpsuit and shackles. He looked smaller than I remembered, thinner. His eyes had lost that smug shine. His lawyer tried to argue that Mark had no ability to pay. "My client's income has been disrupted by these proceedings," he said. Sarah stood up. She handed the judge a copy of the forensic accountant's report. "Your Honor, Mr. Thompson has $200,000 in hidden assets. He has been concealing income for over 2 years." The judge read the report. The courtroom was silent. "Oh!" Mark's lawyer asked for a recess. The judge denied it. "Is this accurate?" the judge asked David Tran, who had been called to testify. "Yes, Your Honor," David said. "I have personally verified every transaction with the credit union. The accounts are in the name of Maplewood Properties, LLC, of which Mark Thompson is the sole member and beneficiary." The judge looked at Mark. "Mr. Thompson, do you have anything to say?" Mark stared at the table. He didn't smirk. He didn't speak. The judge made her ruling. She ordered Mark to liquidate the Maplewood Properties accounts immediately. She ordered him to pay $60,000 in back child support, covering the years he had underpaid. She ordered him to pay $30,000 in legal fees to Sarah's firm. She gave him 45 days to comply. Mark's house on Maplewood Drive was sold at auction in March of 2024. The equity was $150,000. It went to satisfy his debts. His real estate license was suspended by the state board the same month. He lost everything. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I drove home and told Emily the news. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her children. She looked at me and said, "Thank you, Dad." That was enough. Mark's family called me 2 weeks later. His mother. She was crying. She said they hadn't known. She said they were ashamed. She said they were cutting him off entirely. No more support, no more contact. He was dead to them. I told her I was sorry she had to learn the truth that way. I meant it. She sent Emily a card. It said, We failed you. We are so sorry. Emily still has it. She keeps it in a drawer with the evidence. She says it's a reminder that even the people who should protect you sometimes don't see what's right in front of them. Mark served 14 months. He was released on parole in February of 2025. I heard he moved to another state. I heard he couldn't find work. I heard his name was on a registry now. I didn't verify any of it. I didn't care. He tried to apologize once. He called my phone. I didn't recognize the number. He said, "Robert, it's Mark. I wanted to say I'm sorry." I hung up. Some doors should stay locked forever. The morning after the sentencing, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold. Emily came downstairs at 7, her hair still wet from the shower. She looked different, lighter, like someone had removed a weight from her shoulders that I hadn't even known she was carrying. The kids came down 10 minutes later. Dylan, the 6-year-old, asked if we could have pancakes. Chloe, 4, wanted to know if Daddy was coming home. Emily knelt down. She took Chloe's hands in hers. "Daddy isn't coming home, sweetheart. Not for a long time. But we're safe now. We're going to be okay." Chloe nodded like she understood. She didn't. Not really. But she would. The first month was hard. Emily had nightmares. She'd wake up at 3 in the morning, the same time I'd found her in that basement, and she'd sit in the dark until dawn. I'd find her on the couch, staring at nothing. I didn't push. I just made coffee. I put blankets over her if she fell asleep. Slowly, she started talking about it. Not to me. Not at first. She found a therapist through a women's shelter in Newark. A woman named Dr. Reyes, who specialized in domestic abuse recovery. Emily went twice a week. She came home with red eyes but a steadier voice. In March, she came to me with an idea. "I want to start a group," she said. "For women like me, a support group." I asked her if she was sure. "I can't just survive this," she said. "I have to do something with it." She started the group at the community center on Elm Street. What? 4 women showed up the first week, 6 the second. By June, there were 15. They met every Thursday night. Emily led them through exercises Dr. Reyes had taught her. They shared stories, they cried, they laughed. I sat in the parking lot during those meetings, reading a book, waiting. I never went in. It wasn't my space, but I was there if she needed a ride home. The local paper did a story on the group in August. A reporter named Diane called Emily, asked if she'd be willing to talk. Emily said yes. The article ran on a Sunday. It was on the front page of the local section. The headline read, "Survivor finds strength in helping others." Emily framed it. She hung it in her room. By fall, the group had 30 members. They moved to a larger room at the church on Grove Street. Emily was offered a paid position as a peer counselor. $20 an hour. She took it. I watched my daughter become someone else. Someone who stood straight. Someone who spoke in full sentences without looking down. Someone who believed she deserved to take up space. That Thanksgiving, it was just us. Emily, the kids, me. I made a turkey. It was dry. Nobody cared. Dylan said grace. He thanked God for pancakes and Princess Chloe and Grandpa and Mommy and T-Rex toys. Then he paused and said, "And thank you that Daddy can't hurt us anymore." Emily's hand found mine under the table. "Oh!" I squeezed it. After the kids went to bed, we sat on the porch with blankets wrapped around us. The air was cold and clean. Emily looked at the stars and talked about the future. She wanted to go back to school, get a degree in social work, open her own center someday. I told her I'd help however I could. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You already did, Dad." I thought about the moment I'd climbed through that basement window. The sound of the glass breaking, the feeling of the cold air on my face. The terror I'd felt, not for myself, but for her. I had called the police that night. I had testified. I had written checks for lawyers and investigators. But the real work, the impossible work, had been hers alone. Mark was released in February. 14 months. I saw the news online. He'd been denied parole twice because of his behavior in prison. When they finally let him out, he had no job, no family, no license, no house. He was a name on a registry. His mother called me once more after the sale of his house. She said his father had died of a heart attack in December. She blamed the stress of the trial. She said Mark's brother wouldn't speak to him. She said she didn't know what to do. I told her I was sorry for her loss. I told her I hoped she found peace. I said goodbye and hung up. Emily heard about Mark's release. She was quiet for a day. Then she went to her group meeting, talked it through, and came home with her head held high. "He doesn't get to take anything else," she said. She changed her number. I changed mine. We locked down the social media. We told the school only Sarah could approve pickups. We built a wall around our lives, brick by brick, and Mark couldn't touch us anymore. I started writing this story in March. I couldn't stop thinking about that night. About the sound of Emily's crying through the basement floor. Overhead, Mark's laughter. I wrote it down because I wanted to remember. Because I wanted to understand how something this dark could produce, something this bright. Emily graduates her social work program in June. She's going to speak at the ceremony. Her group is now over 100 members. They meet at the county building on Mondays and Thursdays. She has a waiting list. Last week, she brought me a card from one of the women in her group. It said, "Thank you for teaching me that I didn't deserve it." I cried. I don't know if Mark ever learned that lesson. I don't know if he ever will. I don't care. Some doors should stay locked forever. Thanks for listening. If this story resonated with you, hit like and subscribe. And remember, justice doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be absolute.